we'll begin tonight. This is ANC 34G. We represent Chevy Chase and Hawthorne and Barnaby Woods, that general area. I'm Randy Speck, I'm the chair. The area that I represent is ANC 34G03, and that's the area basically between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. And we'll begin tonight with the commissioners introducing themselves. Dan, you want to start tonight?
Sure. Hi, Dan Bradfield, 3G06. I represent the western portion of 3G on Connecticut Avenue from Chevy Chase Park down to Military.
Hi everybody, I'm Jerry Mallitz. I represent 3G05, which is the eastern side of Connecticut Avenue to Broad Branch and from Chevy Chase Circle down to about Military Road.
Mr. Romboludi, 3G07, the southernmost section of our ANC, bounded by Military, Reno, Nebraska, and Nevada.
Good evening, I'm Shannon Tuck Garfield, getting used to this technology. Before we used to have to speak really loudly, but now we don't. I will whisper. Thank you all for coming, and I'm from 34G02, to include that 4, which is on the easternmost side of the district, and it includes Oregon Avenue, Utah, Military, Knoll Retirement Community, and St. John's College High School. And thank you to everyone for coming out. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Abraham Kleeman, and I represent 34G01, Hawthorne, and part of Barnaby Woods. Thanks for coming in there.
My name is Rebecca Madak, and I am 34G04. I include Lafayette School and Lafayette Park, and I go from Broad Branch to Utah, basically Tennyson to Nebraska Morrison.
Okay, we have a quorum tonight. All 7 commissioners are here, so we can conduct business. The first order of business is to talk about the agenda. To adopt the agenda, it was published on our website and on the Chevy Chase listserv, as well as in the Northwest Current. There have been a couple of changes. We've added a presentation by Dr. Robert Holman, who's going to be here on behalf of Fire and EMS. And we're also going to consider a possible resolution supporting the March for Our Lives in Washington on March 24th. That'll come at the very end of the meeting. Otherwise, I think the agenda remains basically the same. All those in favor of adopting the agenda? 7-0. All right. On the first item, the Commissioner's announcements, I have a few. The first is just a status update on the efforts to get the community center modernized. We approved our report and recommendations, as many of you will remember, on January 22nd. And since then, we've sent the report to the relevant council members, specifically to Councilmember Che and Councilmember Todd and to Councilmember Bonds. Councilmember Bonds had taken a particular interest in the community center. We've also sent copies to the relevant agencies, the Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of General Services, to the library as well. And we sent a copy to the mayor, of course. She's the first one who will have to review this. The Chevy Chase Citizens Association has joined with us in letters of support to the mayor and to the council members. And we've had meetings with Councilmember Che and Councilmember Todd and with the library to talk about the report and our recommendations with them. And we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with the mayor and her staff to talk about the recommendations and hopefully to convince her that we need to have this money in her budget. The budget will go to the council on March 21st, and we're very hopeful that the mayor is going to include our recommendation in that budget as well. The request, as you will recall, is for $24 million. It will be spread over probably 3 years, so it won't be all in one big fell swoop. So we'll keep everyone posted on exactly what's happening with regard to the Chevy Chase Community Center modernization. Second thing also has to do with community center, and that's the new senior services coordinator. Brittany Miller is the new senior services coordinator. There was an open house or meet and greet with her last week. And so she's being introduced to the seniors. She has an office up on the second floor, just off the multi-purpose room. And so if you have any thoughts or things you would like to suggest, please get in contact with her. I also attended a meeting called by the Department of Public Works as part of their outreach efforts last week. And it was apparently just a few commissioners who were identified, I think, by the Mokers. And DPW wanted to have sort of a listening session with us. And so there were 7 of us commissioners there from really all over the city. DPW is very interested in sort of rebranding itself at this point because they think a lot of people don't understand what they do, which is absolutely true. It's more than just picking up the garbage and recycling because they have responsibilities for, of course, leaf collection, for snow removal, but also things like traffic parking enforcement. So they have a broad range of responsibilities, and they're trying to determine what people are interested in and what their concerns are. And I did echo the concerns that have been expressed in our neighborhood, particularly about leaf collection, about the $75 tickets that people are getting. That was a consistent theme among all of the commissioners who were there. Many of them were expressing the same kinds of concerns. So I think DPW is hearing those concerns loud and clear. They told us that part of this process is a hope that they're going to really improve their performance. So we'll see as things progress, and we'll hold their feet to the fire on that. The last announcement I have is with regard to Murals DC, and I think they've been around for a while, but they just recently sent out another reminder to us that this is another function of DPW, believe it or not, where they have a program for free murals on walls in the neighborhood. And they can be used for a variety of reasons, for an identification of a business, or to capture the character and history of the community, or just to enhance the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And to get murals, you can contact mural.dc@dc.gov, and I will have a telephone number and another contact there, the Murals DC coordinator, Nancy Lyons, in our minutes. Okay, other announcements. Becky?
The past week, the Office of OP3 and DDOT held they called them public hearings for the lights in the district. They changed it to town hall. It was really just kind of a meet and greet. They had a presentation, but nobody sat down. They never presented it. They had boards up. What they're going to do is they're getting input from the public about the lights. They had manufacturers there. They're going to set up an advisory board with one member from each ward to help advise them on the lights. So when they put the lights in across the city, they're trying to accommodate what the residents want. And so that's where it stands. That's where it stands now. And the presentation should be on the OP3 or DDOT's website. It was very informal.
I don't have any announcements.
No, I don't have any announcements tonight.
I'll just mention that you can see that we're recording, and we started recording these at the last meeting, and we posted it to our YouTube channel, ANC 34G, and we had just a piece of news. We had 15 people attend the last meeting that we had, and we had 83 views on YouTube, and even assuming if all the commissioners viewed it, still gives us about 5 times as many people viewed it, at least part of it on YouTube, and we're here in person, so I already think think that that's a success in our attempt to make our meetings more available to people.
No announcements.
Okay, let's go to the community announcements. Microphone. Sorry. Ian, or the mayor's office? Sure. And if everyone who comes up to the podium, if you could just state your name so that we'll have an identification, particularly on the video, so people will know who you are.
Well, I'm Ian Maggard, the Ward 3 Liaison for Mayor Bowser's office. A couple quick announcements. Last week, Mayor Bowser welcomed the 700,000th resident of the District of Columbia. The two babies that actually represented the 700,000th residents were baby Leah and baby Cooper. And I also wanted to invite folks on Saturday. The mayor and the council are hosting folks at the John A. Wilson Building at 1350 Pennsylvania Avenue for the Mary Mary statue dedication. There's additional information on the back table if you'd like. And then on Sunday, the Mayor's Office of Women's Policy and Initiatives is hosting the Women of Excellence Awards. And that is at the Pearl Street Warehouse at 33 Pearl Street Southwest. And we'd love to have folks out. If you have any community issues or concerns, feel free to reach out. I'll be here to meeting. Thank you.
Jackson?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Jackson. My name is Jackson Carnes. I'm here representing Councilmember Brandon Todd, the Director of Constituent Services. A few updates from our office. Oversight season is in full swing. So Councilmember Todd is the Chair of Government Operations, and he'll be holding hearings with the Chief Technology Officer, the Executive Office of the Mayor, and the City Administrator this week, and in the next few, the next couple weeks. And then also, there's going to be a block captain training in a couple weeks. It's going to be on March 13th at 7 p.m. And that's going to be at the 4th District Police Station, which is at 6001 Georgia Avenue Northwest. And then also, in addition, it's getting to that time of year, when springtime's coming, but that also means potholes. So if anyone has a pothole, if you could get me the address, the nearest address to where it is, I'd be happy to work on getting it repaired. So I'll be here through the duration of the meeting, and I look forward to any potholes and anything else.
Thanks, Jackson. Anthony Costello? No, not here. Nobody from Mary J's office. Okay, any other community announcements anyone wants to make? I will just recognize as well, we've got a number of students from AU here tonight, journalism students, and we welcome you. We'll try to make some news tonight so that you can cover it. Okay, no other announcements. I just got a note from Dr. Holman indicating he has to leave at 7:30, so we're going to move him up to the beginning, if that's okay with everyone. Okay, Dr. Holman, you want to begin? Dr. Holman is, as I mentioned earlier, is with EMS and fire department. He's the medical director, and he's practiced internal medicine and infectious diseases for 24 years, I believe. Is that right? In Arlington, and has been a professor of medicine at Georgetown, and served as associate dean at the clinical education for Georgetown at the Virginia Hospital Center. So he's got a lot of medical experience, and we're anxious to hear from you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your indulgence for having me go earlier. I've been with EMS for about 2 years as their medical director, and we are launching a nurse triage line in the 911 system beginning April 19th. This is called Right Care Right Now. And why are we doing this? We have the highest per capita EMS 911 use in the country, in Washington, D.C., and at least a quarter, if not more, are very low acuity in terms of calls. Our ambulances pick up hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of patients with simple things like toothaches, sore throats, bladder infections, headaches, and take them with an ambulance and put them in an emergency department. That's clearly the wrong thing to do. This program will actually take those calls and bring in a nurse to that conversation. That nurse will be located in our 911 system. The nurse will further evaluate that caller and then arrange a place for them to go, recommend a clinic. This is largely going to be the community health centers in DC. 68% of these low acuity callers have Medicaid, and so we're basing most of our recommendations for them in the community health centers and in the urgent cares throughout the district. For those with Medicaid, we've been able to convert their transportation benefit, which is to schedule it out beyond 72 hours, to an immediate, within 30 minutes pickup. So we are really excited about this. We have a threefold aim. One of them is to relieve our overtax system, to eliminate emergency department overcrowding, and most importantly of all, is to really get patients who don't know really how to manipulate the system better, to get them to a primary care physician so that they can get better and more comprehensive medical care. You all have an FAQ sheet in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. That was very helpful. Is this basically sort of a triage type of program then, in order to identify those who are really in need and make sure that they get the prompt care that they need?
Yes. Now, we already do a triage system in our 911 system, where we send out an advanced unit, which has a paramedic, or we just send out a basic unit, which has only an EMT. So this will be adding a third feature to that, which would be the nurse triage line. And this would be something we're going to ramp up slowly and study it intensely for the first 6 months, and then ramp up over time.
Thank you for coming. I see here that it mentions that this will mainly help individuals who are Medicaid beneficiaries, and non-Medicaid and DC healthcare lines enrollees won't receive the transportation through the program. Can you explain how the triage would work if, for instance, someone doesn't meet that necessarily income threshold? Or
Sure.
all that
So this is, anyone can benefit from this system if they have what is determined to be a low acuity call. And then right now, since Medicaid and also for Alliance, if they actually have a low acuity call, and the nurse will be able to see what kind of insurance they have, they'll be able to say, we're going to send out transportation to pick you up in 30 minutes. For those individuals like myself who don't have Medicaid, they'd say, we recommend you go to your primary care doctor or a nearby clinic, and then I would say, okay, and I'd drive my vehicle or take other transportation.
Now, how would that work, for instance, someone who's elderly but may be above the Medicaid threshold?
Sure. So initially it's strictly for Medicaid and Alliance patients, but our vendor assures us that during the first year they'll be contacting all the private insurance companies and adding that feature on as we roll along. They're pretty confident that the private carriers are going to be eager to participate in this.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the senators? Gary?
In this area, a lot of the calls end up going to Chevy Chase, Maryland, when people need something. Are you going to be coordinating with them at all in regard to this?
So in terms of sending them to where in Chevy Chase, this is only for the district residents, and there'll be
A lot of district residents in this area end up calling the Chevy Chase, Maryland.
So if they are seeking 911 care here and it's a low acuity call, we'll be directing them to seek care at their primary care physician's office.
I think your question, Jerry, should have, are you going to honor the memorandum of understanding between the fire department and the Bethesda Chevy Chase Rescue Squad?
Sure. Now, for this program, they won't be involved because they won't be picked up by an emergency vehicle.
Okay.
Estimating how do you ensure that the triage process doesn't delay people who need urgent like that?
So the 911 call taker will be taking the call as per usual. And what happens in that situation is the call taker asks a few questions, and then the computer will tell that individual, dispatch an ALS vehicle, dispatch a BLS vehicle. And that happens quickly, and it goes out. This was just adding another feature for the lowest acuity calls. So if it's a sore throat, they'll say, forward to the nurse. And then the nurse will pick up. Now, there will be a lot of, since we're slowly ramping up, we're only going to have about 65 calls per day forwarded to the nurse. And those who are low acuity callers who are not sent to the nurse will get standard approach right now.
One question, thank you. If, in your opinion or in the numbers that you have, at the maximum level, if this was implemented system-wide, approximately how many calls would be routed to the nurse triage?
So, in our most optimistic phase, of our 500 or so calls per day for EMS, we might be able to get maybe near 200.
Thank you.
And we're slowly ramping up because we need our transportation vendors need to say we need to ramp up slowly, and most importantly, our clinics that are mostly involved in this are saying we need to do this very slowly so that we can see whether we need to up staff.
Thank you. And thank you again for coming and presenting and explaining this.
One more question?
You referred to several times. Could you just define that? I mean, I have a definition. What's the definition?
So these would be calls such as headaches, stub toes, sore throats, toothaches, mosquito bites, kind of thing that each and every one person in this room would agree would not need care in an emergency department. And you'd really be surprised the level of very minor illnesses that will be brought by emergency medical services to the emergency department currently.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Dr. Holman, we thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and I saw Anthony come in after we had gone through the announcements, but Anthony, do you have any announcements from Councilmember Che's office?
Yes, no? Yes, okay. Hi everybody, I'm Anthony from Councilmember Che's office. Just a few announcements. One is a reminder that tomorrow is DDOT's oversight hearing. That hearing is scheduled for 2:30, not the original time, which was 11 a.m. Second announcement is that at noon tomorrow is the dedication of the Boris Nemtsov Plaza. That will happen at noon on Wisconsin Ave, at the intersection of Wisconsin Avenue and Edmonds. And this may have already come up in the announcements, but this Saturday is the unveiling of the Marion Barry statue at the John A. Wilson Building. That's 1350 Pennsylvania Avenue. That will take place at 11:30. That's it.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, the next item on our agenda is one that we've discussed previously, and that's the public space permit application at Oregon Avenue, 7076 Oregon Avenue. And we've heard this before, and I believe the applicants are going to be back to give us some more information. And Abe, you want to take care of this?
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay, thank you. So I just wanted to give a little background before David and Greg get started. So there's a property at 7080 Oregon Avenue Northwest. at the corner of Oregon and Western Avenue, and that's within the single-member district that I represent. And so McCulloch Residential has submitted plans to divide that property into 2 lots and construct a residence on each lot. As part of the project, there are a number of reviews that have to happen, as you can imagine, in a large city like Washington. And just to give some background, there's probably about half a dozen reviews that have already been done so far, including the Commission for Fine Arts and the Public Space Commission, particularly because this property would create a driveway where one does not exist and cut into the curb. And so when that happens, the Public Space Commission within the Department of Transportation has to review the project, which means that our ANC gets to weigh in and say whether we object or don't object. So that's just a little background on where we are. In January, Tom McCulloch from McCulloch Residential presented on this project and introduced his ANC to the project, and we had a number of questions for him, and we had a number of questions after he had finished presenting. And so he agreed that additional people would present on the project and answer any questions that the commissioners have or that any of you have. And you don't have to live near this project to have a question. You're allowed to ask questions if you just have them. So tonight, David Landsman from CAS Engineering and Greg Davis from McCulloch Residential are both here to present and explain both the plans for the project and to answer some questions that we've submitted already.
Thank you. Did a great job introing it. Just to give you guys a blip on the public space portion, right now the site has a driveway on the southern side accessing the existing house. As Dave mentioned, we're tearing down the existing house and constructing 2 single-family homes. As part of that, we'll be taking the existing driveway, it's 20-some feet wide, closing it, re-landscaping the section, removing the walls next to it, and constructing a new single-wide driveway to service both of the homes located more centrally on the property. The driveway we're proposing is pervious in public space. It'll be a standard DDOT detail concrete apron. And we're also going to fill in the street trees which aren't present along Oregon Avenue, in addition to planting some along Western Avenue as we clean up the sort of shrubby cedars and pines that are at the top of the hill and kind of the open ruin area. We'll be reconstructing a lead walk for one of the houses on top of the existing lead walk and adding a second lead walk to service the second house. Happy to answer any questions you guys have.
So I think we had a number of questions last time, some of which the answers to may have changed, or may have been revisions, or these may be similarly answered in the same way. But can you talk about how many trees will be removed from the property, and then how many trees, if any, will be planted on the property?
Right, so on the private property portion, we're removing 5 trees. We'll be replanting some landscape, but the trees we're removing are small, non-permit sized trees. We're removing 12 trees in public space, only one of those of permit size. Permit size is 14 inches. And we'll be planting the 11 trees I mentioned earlier, 6 along Western at the top of the hill to kind of reframe out that tree stand, and then 5 along Oregon to set up more of a DDOT standard section with street trees. So no heritage trees will be removed, 1 permit sized tree or over 14-inch tree.
Okay, so if I'm hearing that correctly, you said 5 on the property and then 12 not on the property but within public space?
Correct. Counting trees of all sizes, 3 to 18.
So that's a total of 17. And then you're planting 11?
We're planting 11 in public space.
Okay. And you said no heritage trees, but no permit size tree. What is the permit?
So 1 permit size tree will be removed, and the permit size is right now is 14 inches to qualify. It's actually written as 35 inches circumference, which equates to a 14-inch diameter tree.
And where is that located?
It's located down here, sort of in the brushy area. It's the larger of the pines on the north side of the site along Western.
So there's really 2 trees that are of note. One is on Oregon Avenue and would be to the south of the driveway, the proposed driveway. So that
will be left alone. The current plan with that tree, the 38-inch cherry, I think is the tree you're talking about. Our plan is to retain that tree right now. We've talked with UFA about it through our arborist. Our arborist wants to evaluate it in the spring, and UFA agreed. We want to make sure it's in good condition to preserve it. Our plans do preserve it, but we don't want to go construct a house. Tree in decline already dies, and we're kind of on the hook for it. So the discussion with UFA through our arborist was that when trees start to bud up in the spring, they'll reconvene on site before our work is started and look at the tree again and reassess. So our plans right now propose to keep it.
So if I can summarize, right now you don't plan to remove that tree, but your arborist and the Forestry Administration will have a better sense of the health of the tree in the spring.
And if it's in poor condition and those two agree that it should be removed, we would pursue removal.
Got it. But that would be before any construction would begin?
Yes. We wanted
Before the new construction.
before construction in the immediate vicinity of that. Portions of the house access via the driveway may come down depending on our raise permit, but no work directly impacting that tree.
Right. So the idea being that if it was in poor health beforehand, it would
Correct.
We're not affecting it.
So we're assessing the tree pre-project.
And then there's one other heritage tree, I believe, right on the property line. Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Right, we're proposing to retain that tree.
Could you speak into the microphone?
We're proposing to retain the tree that's located in the, south corner of the lot. That tree right now, if you have ever walked to the end of the driveway, there's a retaining wall on the low side that kind of goes up a section of steps to the rear yard. We're going to be removing those walls. It'll be light equipment by hand kind of work, and then reestablishing the grade there. The grade now is depressed for the existing driveway. So we'll be increasing the rootable area for that tree.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about how you plan to protect the cherry tree during the raise?
Cherry tree, so the cherry tree right now has that existing lead walk on the south side. We'll be constructing our new lead walk in the same plane, same position as the existing lead walk. There shouldn't be any additional disturbance there. For the driveway, we'll be changing the grade there and cutting in. We'll be root pruning along that side of the driveway and also applying vertical mulching to the tree to support its health and monitoring it, during construction and following construction for UFA requirements. On the west side of that tree, there's the sort of landscape wall towards the house. We'll be removing that by hand and restoring that grade.
And just to step back for a second, how would you characterize your commitment to making sure that the heritage trees on the property remain in good health?
How would I characterize it? Strong. I mean, we've hired an ISA certified arborist. McCullough is not a builder that is going to do one house and leave or one building and leave. We're committed.
Yeah.
And our arborist, we've communicated with UFA from the start. It's something that, we'll have an arborist report as part of our DDOT approval. That'll include a checklist of times our arborist needs to be on site to observe certain functions, like the root pruning along the driveway. Another one of those checkpoints that they're usually at is the pre-construction meeting to make sure the work delineations are clear to the contractor as the arborist understands them. And then there'll be regular checkups and following construction. We usually work in a provision that the arborist will come back a few times following construction to check up on the tree.
Okay. And then I had a couple other questions. What is the plan? Oh, yeah. Sure.
Here's Ted. We've been burned a little bit with presentations on how they're going to preserve a tree that is located close to a sidewalk or a driveway, and it hasn't proved as optimistic as was presented. And in fact, the trees were severely damaged and ultimately were lost. Is there any way you can move the driveway so that it's not so close to that tree? This is it's a very large cherry tree, a very large cherry tree. And I would be ashamed to lose that tree if it can be preserved. And when Tom was here last time, he did talk about the possibility of moving the driveway a little bit away from the tree. Is that no longer a possibility?
So we've gone over it with our arborist, and our arborist feels that the driveway as we're showing it is possible without fatally damaging that tree. I think we could possibly shift it a little bit towards the north, but due to the way the lot lines are set up, the driveway wants to come in kind of centralized on those two lots. So we can go back to our arborist again and see, have them reassess their opinion, but they've reviewed the plan and feel that it preserves the tree.
We heard that from arborists before.
And I'm not an arborist.
Neither am I. But has urban forestry brought into all of that, including the trimming of the roots there?
Urban forestry is currently reviewing plans as part of the public space committee. So you've seen their comments and comps. We're currently going back and forth with them and presenting our plan.
Okay. And have you submitted this? This is a new drawing you've got for us today, right? You haven't submitted that to TOPS, though, have you?
We haven't. The slight changes that you'll see on that drawing are largely stormwater management related. So, not that they're overly germane to this, but I'll touch on them. For stormwater management on private property, the DOE reviewer asked us to do some additional soil testing, which we did in the front yard. We got similar percolation rates that we got on our initial testing. And they requested that we do more of a bunched infiltration trench in the front as opposed to extending down the full length of the driveway. Same volume, just different configuration.
Well, I was really referring specifically in this instance to that heritage tree, that cherry tree. You had it removed on the previous drawing. It's not removed here.
It did, and their comment indicated they want to see a tree preservation plan and the outcome of that U of A discussion with our arborist.
Okay.
So they will be seeing this as well as our arborist report.
And all of that will go on TOPS at some point.
Absolutely.
Is the review still scheduled for the Public Space Committee on March 22nd?
Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about the plan for stormwater runoff. I know you just started to touch on it.
So stormwater management for public space will be our tree planting along Western and along Oregon. We're also doing an impervious pavement driveway section in public space outside of the driveway apron. So that section will be completely pervious. On private property, we're collecting all the runoff from both houses and the impervious surfaces, and we're doing an infiltration trench under the front half of the driveway. Essentially, similar setup to pervious pavement with a sort of a larger footprint, a little bit deeper section. Still gravel type storage for stormwater, and we had infiltration rates which are actually really good on this site, so the soil soaks up water really well. So groundwater recharge infiltration facilities.
Yeah. Can you say your name, so everyone can
I'm
hear you?
sorry, I'm Beth Lamoureux, and I live on 2 houses now. There is a large retaining wall in the back of the property, and you did mention that you were going to take that out.
Now, the wall will be taken out as the short landscape wall that kind of goes along both street frontages. It's a little brick wall that's kind of falling over in sections. The wall along the rear of the property will stay.
That will stay.
And that's part of our tree protection or tree preservation for the trees behind it. Any work around that wall or to work with that wall would be difficult, one, and two, it would kind of compromise the trees on the high side. So we'll be keeping that wall.
All right, and so the trees on that high side are going to stay? Okay. And then relative to, right now the house is pretty elevated. When you look at it on the corner of Oregon and Western Avenue, there's a nice elevation that's there. So to accommodate the 2 houses that you're proposing, can you go into a little bit more detail about how the grade is going to change to accommodate that?
Sure.
And let me stop there and then.
Okay, so grade-wise, the driveway that we're pulling out will largely be filling in, has short, maybe 12, 18-inch brick walls on each side. That'll get filled in with dirt. Not a whole lot of grade change there, but it'll be combed over so it won't be a depression. That's along the south side. We'll be cutting in our driveway through the center of the lot. So as that hill goes up, hits the retaining wall and goes up to the house, that'll be cut in for the new driveway. The 2 houses will sit up above the street, similar to the house now, but not nearly as high. The existing house is 3.5 feet door elevation higher than this house, and almost 5 feet higher door elevation than the second house. So we're kind of bringing the whole site down closer to the area. Because that house right now is way up.
Are you anticipating that you're going to have to go, because it's going to be, these homes are going to be 3 stories high, correct? So should we make the assumption that the elevation isn't going to be any higher than the 7070 house that you guys constructed?
I think they'll be similar to that.
Shall we split similar? Because I know that is a sensitivity to our neighbors behind us, is that their sidelines are going to be obstructed again.
I don't have the first floor elevation for that house with me, but I believe they are all about the same first floor or door plane, I guess, if you will. And then the houses will all be, the 3-story house, similar fashion to that house. Height-wise, I don't have that exact.
And do we know that if this house, this is an older home, I don't remember what year it was built, but do you know that home is on land, on fill or not on fill?
Don't believe it's on fill. Our borings hit some rock at around 12 feet, 13 feet. So there may be a couple fill pockets above it, but not large pockets of fill. I would suspect the back of that house is pretty close to rock at the ground basement level, excuse me. So I don't think they're on fill. I think that front yard was likely filled in with that retaining wall, but all of that should be pulled in.
Do you have other questions, Beth?
Well, I'm just wondering if we should, are you anticipating not having a similar circumstance, are you anticipating circumstances that are not similar to building 7070 where you realize where there was a lot of trees underneath?
Okay. I personally don't remember that project. I'm not anticipating a lot of our work for these 2 houses will occur within the house footprint that's there now, or that driveway section. That driveway section I don't believe is on fill, and the house wouldn't have fill. I think the front yard, there may be some junk up in the front yard that they filled in when they raised the yard with that little wall, but stuff that we'll pull out as part of construction.
Are there other questions from residents? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Connie Chang. My name is Connie Chang. I live nearby. I have 2 clarifying questions. One is about the heritage tree. Let's assume that you go with your design and something happens. Is there a penalty? What's the penalty for destroying that tree?
So it would be up to DDOT and Urban Forestry what penalty they would assess. Assuming we come out in the spring, this is a healthy tree, let's preserve it. The baseline penalty, I guess, if you will, is $300 a circumference inch. For a tree like that, somewhere in the $35,000 to $40,000 fine range.
So are you saying you have an incentive to?
I think we have a real incentive.
And what do you do to protect that tree physically? Do you barricade it?
We will tree protection fence around it, where we're going to do a cut rather than going in there with heavy equipment ripping the roots. You cut them ahead of time, do a clean cut, and treat the roots. Another measure is fertilization during construction with vertical mulching, kind of help the roots that are closer to the tree get more oxygen, more nutrients.
So along the same lines of the clarifying question, does DDOT ask you for a different drawing? I know you said that aesthetically you like the driveway to go through straight, but other than aesthetics, is there any other reason to keep with this drawing if you can offer a PFD so that you don't have to cut the roots?
We can look into a couple more feet. DDOT's policy is a centralized driveway. When you have a shared property, it's to center it up with the property line. We can certainly talk with them about shaving off a couple feet or offsetting it to a couple feet.
And then one last question is, on the trees on the public side, the 12 that you are going to remove, is there a reason for your removal other than?
Just to clean up the landscape kind of along Western. Most of them are located there. There's a couple larger pine or spruce trees. A lot of them are small, scrubby, weed type trees. that we, want to take out and put in large canopy trees, or trees that will end up being canopy trees, the trees that are there right now. Poorly clustered. Not sure. There are a couple that are taller. The one that's permit size obviously is a little bit taller, but a lot of them are scrubby weed trees.
I'd like to ask a couple questions on behalf of the neighbors in regard to construction. Where will your workers park? Secondly, where will you put your dumpster? And if Oregon Avenue is closed, where will you put your dumpster? And how will, and what streets will your trucks come in and go out bringing supplies, removing and so forth? Those are construction type of questions.
Sure. And I'll take a stab at it, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Trucks coming in and out will be all Western as a conduit in and out of the city. There'll be, closed access to the site and back out. Going down to Oregon, I think it's a little challenging. It's a residential area. Dumpster, I think our intent would be to put it in the existing driveway. We're going to kind of maintain that driveway through construction and remove it sort of towards the end and use that.
What about during construction of Oregon Avenue?
During construction of Oregon Avenue,
Oregon Avenue is going to be constructed within the next 6 to 8, 9 months from now.
So while they're constructing, we would imagine
that project?
Yeah, we're aware of it. Time frame wise, I think it's a little bit, right?
It may not get to you for almost a year and a half, but I don't know.
Ideally, we would be done in a year and a half. If they're constructing while we're constructing, we'll be, we would assume they'll make measures for us to get in and out of the property. We'll coordinate with them.
Thank you. And where are your workers parking?
Workers, we're going to put as many of them in the driveway as we can. We'll keep the dumpster, located on the driveway and just pack as many.
On-site parking.
Large driveway. So we'll pack as many as we can.
Thank you.
One thing about Oregon Avenue construction, we're going to have them at our meeting, I think it's on April 9th. DC Water and DDOT are both going to be there to talk about the status of their planning for that construction. My recollection is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, and Abe, but I believe they were planning on doing the northern section first, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that would be the first portion that DDOT would begin work on, and that could well interfere with your construction. You certainly need to be aware of that. It might be good for somebody to be here at that meeting on April 9th, just to hear what they have to say.
We'll talk very good time and try to get somebody here.
I did have one last question. When you, sorry, Dan.
No, just simple. What's the estimated construction time?
It's permit dependent right now. We're hoping to start June, July, and then I would guess a 12-month build.
6 to 8 months.
That'd be even better.
Okay, I have a question. Oh, sorry, Chris. I saw on the back of it says cellar. How are you defining cellar? Is it a complete basement?
Cellar versus basement
Yes.
is a zoning designation. Cellars are typically more buried than a basement is. So it's defined by the grade of the front, middle of the house. In this case, a cellar has the ceiling at the lowest level, less than 4 feet above the adjacent grade. Kind of an odd way to measure, but that's the designation. So for these, the house closest to the corner will almost be completely buried up at the house. The interior of the two are grade outside the house will be 4 feet below the first floor.
Okay.
So almost completely buried.
Okay, and then the other issue or question that I have is regarding to the brick wall. It mentions that you're going to remove it. So in terms of the back, are you doing
Brick wall that we're noting is that landscape wall that kind of skirts the front and the corner of the house. It's a low, maybe 18-inch, 2-foot wall that's fallen over in sections. So we have that noted for DDOT, so they know that we're taking that wall out.
So once you do take the wall, and in terms of the grading of the property and any water runoff issues, how are you handling that? I didn't see that here.
So we're going to be blending. The hill will largely remain as it is right now. We'll be taking out the wall and blending the grade back into our site. So from a water management perspective, it'll be pervious, it'll be landscaped. All of our uphill runoff or house runoff, that's dealt with and piped on site into our facility.
This question is for Abe and Shannon as much as you guys. When they rebuilt Oregon Avenue, it was my understanding they were also going to put a sidewalk in on that side of the street. How are you anticipating that in this plan?
So we are anticipating a sidewalk. We're putting in our standard apron with the flared bottom section and then the sidewalk section for them to connect to. We've also situated our street trees along Oregon in between the tree box strip where they would typically be. And our step sections start behind that sidewalk section. So we'll be able to accommodate a sidewalk with no changes.
Okay. You want to do something with this permit then?
I did have just one other quick question before we do. Yeah, 1 second, sir. So you did submit plans to the Commission on Fine Arts, and as a kind, those plans were approved in concept. Do you intend to change those plans in any way?
So those plans weren't changed from the concept submittal to the submittal that will have the permit review. It'll be heard on their March docket. The reason it was a concept and not a full permit review in January was because we didn't have our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural drawings with it. So they said the house plans are relatively complete, but we can't give it a permit review without the stuff they don't really review. So it's a technicality thing. Okay. So they'll be getting them, and I would expect them to approve them in March. They're the same plans. Okay. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. My name is Chris Ford. I live directly behind 7070 Holman Avenue, which is the house that I guess I'm enjoying to the right. Okay. And that in 7070 was built perhaps 10 years ago. That house, at the time it was built, seemed to have a sight line or a roof line that was much higher than the houses surrounding it. And then generally in the neighborhood itself. And I'm just following up on Beth's question. These two houses, are you saying that they will have similar roof lines, height wise, or higher, lower, or whatever?
I believe they'll have similar roof lines, similar house structure, similar floor plates. I don't have the information on the house that was built on the Oregon side of yours, so I don't know if I can really comment on the roof line. I can tell you they're within the zoning required heights. Zoning lets you go to 40 feet. We're around 30 for both of these. But I don't have a good comparison for the house next door.
At this point, I think my main objection or concern is still just around that large heritage tree, whether that will be adequately protected. And it sounds like David and you are committed to doing that, but there's also some discussion that has to happen with the forest tree. So I think I'm hesitant to say we don't have any objections, because I think we do, but there seems to be some things that are sorted out kind of beyond the scope of what we're talking about.
We can certainly advise the Public Space Permit Committee that we have concerns about that tree and that we don't have objections to this application so long as that tree is taken care of.
You have to go the other way. You have to object because of our concern.
Okay. But in any case, we can, I think, accommodate that in whatever we submit to the Public Space Committee. And I think we also ought to rely heavily on urban forestry. I mean, they're the experts in this, and ultimately, if they're going to approve it, then I think they would probably satisfy our concerns too. I have the same concerns you do.
I mean, I think what I'm saying is I'd be willing to write in that we do object, that we wish to have a real ruling or real assurance from urban forestry that the plans for preserving that tree are sound plans, and that they feel comfortable with what's being planted. Assuming that they do, then I would feel comfortable withdrawing our objection. And I wonder if other commissioners have thoughts on that.
I don't think that's a conclusion.
And I think, and just to be clear, correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, there will be other points at which this project can or should or would come before this committee, or is that something that would unlikely to happen?
This is it.
Okay.
Unless something goes on.
Got it. I see. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clemens, I think correctly that you're going to ask them to tell you what trees will be planted and place of ones to take away? Not the heritage one, but the ones that they're planting on one side and the other side? The kind of trees, the specific trees?
That's not something that I asked for, but I think at this point we know the number, that 17 would be removed and 11 would be planted. And having seen the property myself, I am less concerned about the smaller trees, and I think they've been characterized pretty accurately. These are not large canopy heritage old trees that are being removed, except for potentially this one that's close to the driveway. Okay. I think then what I would say is that I would make a motion that we do object to this application on the grounds that we have some concerns about the preservation of this particular tree, and if the Urban Forestry Administration deems this plan to be appropriate, that we would withdraw that objection. Is that clear? Enough?
If they deem it okay, then it's, I guess you could say that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the sense that I have. That's what I feel.
There's been a second.
Okay.
All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I recognize, while we're on the break here, Troop 52 is standing back. Unfortunately, we didn't have chairs. But today, we're glad to have them today. We have one of your former troop members, who's also a scout leader, Alan Beach, who was, cheers.
Glad to have you with us tonight. Are we still wearing, could somebody turn around so I can see his back of the neckerchief? Yes. Designed by Assistant Scoutmaster Elliot Salinger, 1950.
Okay. All right. The next item on our agenda is DDOT. And Lee Goodall is here. Lee is the newly named manager for the community engagement. Yes. You'll have to push the button, I think. Yeah, okay. And we were very disappointed for a period of time when we didn't have a community engagement team at DDOT. We had them for a while and they disappeared, and then no one was there for the longest time. When Jeff Marushian came in as director, we really encouraged him to make sure that he revitalized that aspect of the work. And so we appreciate having you as a liaison, essentially, with the ANCs around the city. I know you're going to have a staff as well, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, if you could just tell us a little bit about what you're going to do as a community engagement manager and how we might interact with you.
Certainly. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you to the community for having us today. Again, my name is Lee Goodall. I'm the manager of the Community Engagement Division at DDOT. Our division is located within the External Affairs team at DDOT, as well as in the Office of the Director. I know that Director Meridian was here, I think in October, at your meeting, and you had a good discussion about the concerns and that you were raising about DDOT's interaction with the ANC as well as the community. And I know he promised at that time that he was hiring individuals to come on board. So I'm proof. I think this is day 32 or 33 on the job, and I'm very happy to be here. So just a little bit, I'm overseeing a team of currently 2 individuals, and I manage the team for community engagement for the entire city, so for the entire district. So one of my teammates here, Denise Jackson, is here, who currently works with one of her colleagues, Tian, who split the city into 2 areas. And our plan, which we've already started to execute, is to interview additional individuals to bring them on board in the coming weeks and months. I plan to actually offer probably 2 individuals positions within the next 2 weeks. So we'll expand our team, and then we'll further set out. It's much better. I know Denise, who currently oversees 4 wards, would be a little bit better if she's overseeing 1 or 2 or 3. Our plan is to have a team that is much more responsive to concerns that get elevated that are emergency in nature, or that have been long-standing in planning or nature that you feel, the community feels aren't quite moving in terms of getting an answer back. So our hope is to be not just do constituent services in terms of those issues, but to be much more proactive in coming back to the ANC and to the community about what DDOT's plans are and where we are in the status of a variety of requests or studies. I reviewed the minutes of the commission over the last several months, and that seems to be one of the big concerns, which is not unlike many other commissions across the city. Our team's job is to help manage and track those requests that the DDOT has that get elevated to us. For example, if there's a pothole that you put in a request to for 311, which I'm going to push again in a moment, and we have a service level agreement within our agency to do every little thing that you can think of that DDOT handles. We have internal timelines of which we've agreed amongst ourselves and the community to do that. But if there's a pothole, for example, you put in, we're supposed to get that filled within 72 hours, 72 business hours of that request. So if you put it in on Monday, in theory, the following Monday it's filled. Now, if you give us that grace and for some reason it isn't done yet, that's when we expect probably a call from you or email asking, hey, what happened? Usually I know people are really good about giving us a little bit of time to get things done, but if it's been 2 weeks and hasn't been done, that's when our team will expect to hear an email or a phone call, and that service request number that you received helps us tremendously in getting push in the backing in the building to get it done. So we know it's something that was put in. For some reason we missed it, or for some reason it was done, but the service request wasn't closed out. So you might not have gotten an email about it, and so that's something that we can handle on our end. I know there's a variety of other examples I could give, but outside of constituent service type service requests, our other responsibility is to come back to you and or bring the subject matter experts within our agency to talk about the issues that you're concerned about. So I know that we've heard and I know about some questions about Oregon Avenue and some questions that have been sent over the last few weeks about sidewalks and when certain repairs are going to happen. And then we're more than happy to either come out and explain what's going on ourselves or to bring along our experts with us.
Sidewalks, could you just address Shelley Schoenberger, who was the person who raised this issue about the sidewalk on Military Road that I sent you pictures of? If you could just explain what the status is on that.
Sure. So in this particular instance, there are large trees that are essentially the pathway for where the sidewalks are. I think we're currently working between our asset management divisions, which maintain our sidewalks, our urban forestry division, which obviously cares for our street trees, and our safety team as well, which helps design the flow of safe pathways for residents and vehicles. And that's a little bit of a tough situation because it's an older tree, and obviously removing it is, obviously after hearing a recent discussion here, but generally we're not in the business of removing trees where we don't have to. So I've asked Denise, who has had a couple conversations with the team. It's going to take us a couple days to figure out what might be a possible solution for you or options, and we will come back to you probably before your next meeting. So we'll work that through email. Oh, hey.
I'm not going to start.
Great.
The sidewalk's been like that since we put the curbs in. Now, at least 2 years. It's horrendously dangerous. I mean, there was an elderly couple walking there last week who almost fell. I walk their baby with my dogs. It's a military road, and it's really dangerous. With all the construction trucks coming, you know, from the home that they're building, and, you know, the hillside. And I pointed out to the employee who was on our street last year, who said, oh, we'll start this process. Okay, that was a year ago. So, really frustrated.
Yep.
And it's an emergency. I mean, really, to somebody who walks there, and to anybody who's walking up around the park, there's lots of people bringing their dogs and walking. It's so dangerous. And the house, if you look two recent houses up, they managed to do a repair on their own, you know, do it for some reason on their sidewalk. It's beautiful asphalt and over. So I'm begging you, please, get it done. It's so dangerous. I work running people, and kids are running from the high school, they're coming, and it's, you know, and it's like this high, to step up over there.
Yeah, I saw the photos, and we obviously did. I haven't seen it myself visually in person, but we did do the Google Map tour of the community. So I definitely understand what you're saying. I think to that point, we as an agency get a lot of these kind of tough situations, and I think the great part about having the constituency team and me being able to grow it is that things like this won't fall through the cracks, so to speak. And so we'll be able to get back to you with the status of where we are and what the solution can be. So,
Okay, well, I mean, I hope so, because
yeah.
it's been over a year now since somebody else said that.
Definitely, I definitely understand that, and I think that's our number one job is to track these issues. That's why we exist and why our team is on board. But I definitely understand your frustration. But no, absolutely, absolutely.
I was just saying, I know you haven't been on site, but I completely agree with you. I don't know if you, Miranda, we haven't discussed this. I just don't see how that tree stays.
I do.
Do you really?
You can just asphalt it, it'll be a bit of a hill, like a neighborhood on this sidewalk at 2706. And there was concrete there, they chopped it out, took the curb in, and then left it dirt. No one ever, it's like, we kept it in the end, and forgot it coming back, and no one ever came back.
Is root trimming required now?
Pardon?
Do you think root trimming is required?
I don't think so. I think it can be done without, it can be done in a way that Shelley's neighbor did, just down the road. There was an example I sent around in a picture that I think you can do it by sort of elevating the sidewalk.
Okay.
So I think it can be done without sacrificing the tree. Certainly don't want to sacrifice the tree.
Good. No, but it's a mess now.
So I know that we have just a couple other things. So 311, as I pressed, 311 is the way the city collects any service requests or issues for residents, and I encourage everyone to download it on your phone. I actually, when I go to ANC meetings and I hear about potholes or things like that, this is what I actually do. I put in a service request for the pothole or for whatever it might be, and I get that number, and I actually wait and track it. And so I don't just go back to the agency and start sending off a bunch of emails. So I actually use it myself to make sure that it's being tracked properly. So I encourage everyone to download it on your phone if you haven't done so already. And a couple other things, our urban forestry division, at least for our agency commissioners, and for the general knowledge, I'll just pass it out. Wanted to advise everybody that it is planting season. So the urban forestry division really kicks up their planting for street trees between November and May, although we do plant year-round. I'll make sure that you all get this electronically so you can send it out to your constituents, but also there's a number of links where you can track the progress, see what tree plantings have occurred recently or what new ones are in the offing. And I think the last thing, second last thing is, I think you've all received, or one of the things that we want to do at DDOT, some other agencies do this, is host open houses. And DDOT's open house for ANC commissioners is March 17th at 9:30 a.m. So I think you should have received an invite officially last week, and we ask that you come ready with all your questions and concerns at that meeting. And if I can blend my, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Jerry, do you have another question, or Dan?
I do. And honestly, it's not a question we have not put on the list yet, but I'll bring it up because it's getting worse. It's basically a road. 41st Street is becoming a road in Baghdad. I mean, if you have not seen it, I would encourage everybody lately to take a look at it. You know where. Between Western going all the way, Reno swerves off to the left, and then it continues straight down. And quite frankly, repair and repave probably for at least 5 blocks, 4 blocks, certainly 3 blocks. Pothole perhaps for remaining 4 blocks. Okay. But that section in particular between Military and Western, you can take a look at.
All right. Yeah. As someone said earlier, our director will be with the council tomorrow at the agency performance hearing. And I think he will have some announcements, if not then, in the coming next 2 to 3 weeks on street paving, alleys, and sidewalks, and so forth. But thank you for that. If I can, I was going to, oh, go ahead, sorry.
This isn't a big priority, but when they took a tree out probably about 8 years ago, the new sidewalk was cut around the tree. They took the tree out because of the roots. They left a big hole. They planted a new tree next to it, so we have a sidewalk that goes around nothing. Do they plan on coming back to replace that half of the sidewalk? Because it would be taking out a half of a square for 2, because when people are walking now, they have to kind of go around it, because otherwise they fall off the sidewalk. And again, it's not a priority like the roads or this tree that's really bumping up, but we have these cutouts for trees that are no longer there. And you can't plant a new tree there because they planted a tree next to that spot instead of waiting until they could plant in that spot again. And we keep filling it in with dirt when we have leftover dirt in the summer to try to level it off because it's a pit.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but we can talk about the spots along the roadway that has occurred, and I can get back to you, Commissioner, on that one. Okay? I'm going to, unless there's an objection, I'm going to invite up Sam Zimbabwe to start his presentation on dockless bikes, and then we're happy to answer any other questions for DDOT. Hi, how are you?
Welcome. A quick question, just logistically. In the past, I have, at least as a commissioner, dealt with Alberta Paul, and she's been very helpful from DDOT in dealing with any pothole issues, road issues, things of that nature. And now I know your office is ramping up. So just in terms of logistically, the best person to contact, should we reach out as the ANC to you now, and should our residents reach out to you as opposed to Ms. Paul, or are there different subject matters that she would handle that you would not? How do you all differentiate in terms of your responsibility?
Sure, Sam, you want to add on with Ms. Paul. But I know Ms. Paul, and she's great, she's wonderful. I actually talked to her as a resource within the agency. I guess I would answer that as on general issues that the ANC, or I know that we have reps from the council's office or other stakeholders, we're generally bringing those through my team, and so you can contact me or Denise, and we will make sure that it's addressed throughout the building, wherever it might be. I know there will be projects that are going on, like Oregon Avenue is a great example. In each of the construction projects and planning projects often have communications teams or outreach teams dedicated to them. And so if it's a big project, they're going to have someone, and you're going to probably be best going to them directly. But we're going to work through all the agency over the coming months. It's going to take us some time to make sure that we're woven into what's going on all the projects. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
That's a perfect segue.
One second. Jerry would like to.
Yeah, just something to introduce this topic.
Okay.
Just before you get started there, for people that don't know, so there's a dockless bike trial program going on in Washington, D.C. now. There's 5 companies that are participating in this program, and it runs through April, I believe. So we've had a number of issues come up in front of our group about that, so Sam is here to talk about some of that.
All right, that's a good introduction. So I'm Sam Zimbabwe. I'm the Chief Project Delivery Officer at DDOT, and that is, I sit right next to Lee. My office is like right across from him. And my group brings together planning, design, construction, transit delivery, and traffic engineering and signal. So it's a whole lot of different things, but this definitely falls within my purview. So I'm here to give everybody an update, take questions. Just to close out that last question, so Ms. Paul is doing a lot of stuff related to our capital projects. I think the best place to have those service requests handled is 311, and then if you need a person, Denise and then Lee, as people for the broad area, because Ms. Paul is doing capital projects specifically. So, you know, she's always a good resource. She's always getting things around the building, but it may be outside of her area, so it really helps to go through 311 and through Denise and Lee. So on dockless bike share, there's a couple handouts that are making their way around. I will talk to this one first. This little PowerPoint, it's a 4-slide PowerPoint, and then I'll talk about this one as well. So if anybody didn't get one, I think there's some at the back there, which Denny's going to bring around, so you don't have to run over. Who has seen dockless bike share bikes around? Great, okay. So folks probably are aware of Capital Bike Share. We're now 7 years into having bike share in the district, or 7 years of Capital Bike Share. We have over 250 stations all around the district. It's a regional program that operates with Montgomery County, Arlington County, Alexandria, Fairfax County. That's it right now. And Capital Bike Share is operated as a public transportation model. We own all of the stations and the bikes. Each of those jurisdictions, we jointly contract with a private company to operate and maintain those. So they do the rebalancing, they fix the bikes, they handle the membership services, they do all of those types of things. About a year ago now, a couple companies started in China, a couple other cities started to experience this, where new technology advances enable people and private capital, both of them, enabled companies to start offering basically free-floating bike share. So at no cost to the jurisdictions where they would be operating, companies were saying, well, we can add to your bike share fleet, and we can put bikes out that don't need to have docking stations to work. So with Capital Bike Share, you have to go to a docking station, you have to find a bike, you have to rent it, remove it, take it someplace, put it back into a docking station. Dockless Bike Share doesn't need that same kind of infrastructure to operate. When we started getting approached about this again, this last spring, we looked at the current DC regulations, and we didn't think that the current regulations actually gave us a way to say no to dockless bike share. The requirements for parking a bike are very minor, and they're really about locking a bike to something in public space. So it's actually illegal to lock a bike to something in public space for more than 12 hours. I've done it. I do it all the time with my bike. Probably all have done it, but that's actually technically not legal. So it was a little bit hard to say, well, you companies that are providing this new service can't operate like that. So we decided to do a 7-month demonstration project to see what kind of demand there was, how it would work, and how to manage it going forward. So 5 companies are currently operating. They are each allowed to have between 50 and 400 bicycles out on the street. They have to, there's a couple of requirements on them about where bikes can and can't be parked. They need to leave a 5-foot clear zone for pedestrians to pass, which meets Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. They have to provide us with data about their operations. And they have to have customer service information, things like that. We didn't know exactly what we would experience going into this, and so I felt like this demonstration period would give everybody an opportunity to understand what's going on. So we had a couple of big fears about it. One, that there would be a lot of impact to public space and there would be a real problem that they wouldn't manage. And that's been an ongoing process working with these 5 different companies. There definitely have been problems, and we've seen those problems, and we've worked with the companies to accelerate the pace at which they're responding to the issues and being proactive about not letting issues start. We've also definitely heard from people that the quality of the bikes for a lot of them are not super great, and I think that's also something that we're evaluating. We were also interested in understanding how they would work with Capital Bike Share. So, and I would say there's really 2 big models of how dockless bike share companies are working. There's one company called Jump, which actually does require you to lock the bike to something. They offer e-bikes as well, so it's an electric assist, pedal assist bike. As you start to pedal, it starts to help you out with that, but that's a little bit separate than the locking mechanism. And then the other 4 companies, Lime Bike, Ofo, Spin, and Bike, all operate with just a rear wheel lock. So the bike doesn't have to lock to something, it can sit and be secured on the side of the sidewalk. And we've definitely seen more issues in terms of sidewalks being blocked or bikes tipping over or things like that with those 4, that set of companies. We're trying to understand how their bikes themselves are more or less susceptible to tipping over. So Spin, for example, has a lot of their bikes are equipped with double kickstands, so not just 1 point of contact, but 2 points of contact. Those seem like they're tipping over a little bit less than the other bikes. I put together, so we've been getting data from each of the companies. So we're aggregating that data, and we're starting to put together reports out. It's been a little bit of a learning process for us as we've tried to get all of them to give us data in consistent ways. So this is showing aggregate data for the first 3 months of the pilot, basically. We started on September 20th, so it's starting from that beginning of the program up through December 31st. So we've had about 147,000 rides overall, 31,000